from warfare risks, and the Lord became actually happy when he established the Pandavas to rule over the world. Arjuna remembered all these one after another, and thus he became overwhelmed with such a flow, with such thoughts. Is this better? Sakhyam maitrim sahrudam cha सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपम् अग्रजम् इत्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा सख्यं मैत्रीं सौहृदं च सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपम् अग्रजम् इत्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा सख्यं मैत्रीं सौहृदं च सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपमग्रजमित्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा सख्यं मैत्रीं सौहृदं च सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपमग्रजमित्याह This coming in. Wait, that's no, I want it far away. सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपमग्रजमित्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा सख्यं मैत्रीं सौहृदं च सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपमग्रजमित्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा सख्यं मैत्रीं सौहृदं च सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपमग्रजमित्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा वैष्णवीज सख्यं मैत्रीं सौहृदं च सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपमग्रजमित्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा सख्यं मैत्रीं सौहृदं च सारथ्यादिषु संस्मरन् नृपमग्रजमित्याह बाष्पगद्गदया गिरा ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us as we dive into your sacred texts and find within them the light that can guide us through this dark and difficult world. Hare Krishna. So today morning, can't record screen due to security policy. Hare Krishna. So today morning and Sunday morning, I'll be discussing broadly on the topic of adversity. When everything seems to be lost, how do we find shelter and strength to move ahead in our life? So that's the broad topic. Not when some things are not lost, but when everything seems to be lost. And that is the plight of Arjuna over here. So in today's session, I'll be talking, this is the first session. I'll be talking first about Arjuna's plight, and then we'll see how it can give us fresh perspective on our situation in life, and then we can find our path toward Krishna. And in the next session, I'll be talking about how, even after we have found our path toward Krishna, when we face challenges, how to tolerate and persist. So, in today's session, let's begin what is happening over here. The first canto of the Srimad Bhagvatam is among the most emotionally intense cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam, apart from the 10th and 11th, where there are lots of pastimes of Krishna described. Now, of course, there is the dynamic of sweet and deep emotional reciprocations between the Lord and the devotee that are there in every canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But in the first canto, there are many heart-wrenching moments that come. So we have Arjuna and the Pandavas coming to know that their sons have been killed. And the whole point of fighting this war was to gain a kingdom. The point of gaining the kingdom was to pass on to their children. And the children are dead now. What is the point even of the war? That was utter devastation. Then after that, Bhishma passes away. And they have to be there with him in his last moments. They remember that it was because of them that he is on this painful arrow bed, and he consoles them. And then Arjuna just cannot bear separation from Krishna. So Arjuna goes to meet Krishna in Dwarka. And the very thing that he does to gain more shelter of Krishna makes him face the worst nightmare of his life. Life can bring terrible situations in our life, upon us. And just when we think that things cannot become worse, they actually become worse. So, for Arjuna, just watching Draupadi being disrobed, nothing worse can be there. But having his sons killed and he not even being given a chance to protect them, that couldn't be worse. But then he went to Dwarka, and in front of his eyes, he saw that the kingdom that his friend and Lord had built was destroyed. That Krishna had departed from the world, that Krishna's associates had fought fratricidally among themselves and killed them. And he could do nothing to stop the ocean coming and devouring the glorious kingdom of Dwarka. And if that were not bad enough, he tried to do at least some service to the Lord. If we love someone and if they pass away, and if we can do nothing for them when they pass away, then the least we can do for them is that, okay, I'll do something for your loved ones. I'll take care of your family, I'll take care of this, I'll take care of that. So Arjuna took the responsibility of taking care of the wives of Krishna. Specifically those wives who chose not to enter into the funeral pyre with him. And when he was doing that, Arjuna found that some infidel cowherdmen, they attacked, and he couldn't defend Krishna's wives. Arjuna till then had been known as a peerless archer. When he would shoot an arrow, the arrow would never miss its target. So for archers, in every field, there is a sense of honor. So for archers, it's like, say, preachers. If somebody is a good preacher, they, whatever question comes up, they are able to answer the question. If they can't answer the question, they at least come up with some answer which makes people think that they know the answer. So that means, okay, either I actually enlighten the person by giving a proper answer, or at least I save face. Now that could be because of ego, or that could also be because I'm representing the tradition. So I need, okay, I can say this is the answer I have right now, and I'll find out more and I'll come up with some other answer. I'll let you know if I find some more understanding on this issue. But suppose somebody asks a question and say, we give an answer that doesn't land, that just doesn't satisfy anyone. That's bad enough. But if we can't speak any words at all, if a person just becomes tongue-tied, not because of amazement, but because of bewilderment, that would be so mortifying. So for Arjuna's honor, in the past it was he never missed his target. Now if he had missed, that was itself mortifying. But what happened was, he didn't even reach the target. That is the ultimate sign of weakness. First of all, archers are supposed to shoot with such power that the arrows will penetrate to and pierce through the body of the opponent. But if your arrows can't even reach the opponent, that just means how hopelessly weak you are. So for an archer, one cannot imagine a greater humiliation that the arrows don't even reach the target. Some people, when they're shooting, they want to shoot a particular place, and they're shooting in a particular place, and the bullet or target goes somewhere else only. So that you have no skill in it. So it's embarrassing. So it was for Arjuna, it is utterly devastating. So Krishna had departed from the world, and the skill with which he had been serving, that skill had also departed. And in general, in our lives, we need some shelter or the other. And this is a situation where all shelters were taken away from him. His Lord, whom he longed to be with, in the couple of verses later, he said, Yasya kshana viyogena, just one moment of separation was unbearable from that Lord. And now that Lord has gone away forever. How can I live? And then at least I have my abilities. But Prabhupada will say later in the purports that our abilities are not actually our abilities. And the ability was also taken away. So it's difficult to imagine any situation more painful than this. In one sense, we could say Krishna's presence was his spiritual shelter. Now, his archery ability was his material shelter. Now, of course, he was using his material shelter for a spiritual purpose, but still it is a material skill. In one go, in one fell swoop, he lost his spiritual shelter and his material shelter. What is he to do at such a time? How is he to survive? We can't imagine the kind of agony he must have been. And that's why the previous chapter describes that when Yudhishthir sees Arjuna, Yudhishthir says, "Oh Arjuna, I have never seen you in such a plight." And they have been through some really hard times. And for Yudhishthir to see that, "I have never seen you like this. What has happened? What has got you so not just depressed or distressed, but utterly devastated?" And then now Arjuna has to speak. He has to speak and try to explain and as well as make sense of what happened. The whole journey back to this kingdom, Arjuna was lost in a complete daze, not knowing where he was, what he was doing. Somehow he was just like on autopilot coming. And finally he had reached Yudhishthira. Now he had to explain what happened. And Bashpa Gadgadaya Gira. He was overwhelmed by emotions, unable to speak. So this is the heart-wrenching plight of Arjuna. Now, what does this mean for us in our lives? How can it help us get perspective? So generally, whenever we study scripture, there are broad, or any book that we study, there is something called, there are some things which are basically specific, and there are some things which are universal. So scripture gives specific incidents, but from those specific, we could say, are incidents. And now from these specific incidents, we need to infer universal principles. So an incident itself, okay, it might be entertaining, it might be intriguing, it might be puzzling, but if we are to learn something from it, apart from being just emotionally titillated by it, then we need to see what are the principles being demonstrated over here. So we move from the specific incidents to the universal principles. And then from there, so it's like comprehension or application of scripture is first a journey up. We go up from the specific to the universal. And then after that, we need to come down from the universal to the specifics in our lives. That how do these universal principles apply in my life? So this is often called as the ladder of abstraction. So the universal is often abstract. So we go up from the specific to the universal, and then we come down from the universal to the specific. And that's how we make sense of things for our lives. So somebody may say that, okay, we should always take shelter of Krishna. Okay, that's a universal principle. That even when the shelter, now in Arjuna's plight, even when Arjuna seems to have no shelter, still he took shelter of Krishna. So that could be a broader principle. Now what that means, how do I take shelter now in my particular situation? So we will be going up and down this ladder of abstraction and about the specifics. So today's session, we'll be going primarily from the bottom to the top. And after tomorrow's session, we'll come down and we'll look at specifically the Krishna consciousness movement as it exists and how it offers a shelter. We'll discuss some of it today also. But for us to gain perspective, first, beyond the specific, look at the universal. So what is the universal over here? I mentioned something about it in terms of the means and the material shelter and the spiritual shelter. In general, there are some bedrock truths of life. I've traveled across the world and I've spoken to people from different denominations, different faith backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different age groups. Now, there's one point which, when I speak, we can have all our diversity, but we all can agree on one point. And that point is life is tough. No matter how wealthy we are, no matter how powerful we are, no matter how popular we are, no matter how good looking we are, life is tough. Life is not easy for anyone. And it's significant. See, if we put it as life is tough, everybody agrees. But if you take the same point and put it as this world is dukkhalaya. No, why are you so pessimistic? So what happens is sometimes it's just a matter of phrasing it. So when life is tough, yeah, that's according to our lived experience. But the world is dukkhalaya. It's a place of distress. When we say that, for many people, it seems a recipe for hopelessness. There is opposition to it, resistance to it. So the two are equivalent, but what happens for most people, there is no idea that there is any world beyond this world. So when we say the world is a place of distress, then that means that there is no hope of going out of distress. And that's what makes it seem very pessimistic. So now life is tough. And to face the difficulties of life, we humans broadly seek two things. We need means and we need meaning. So means refers to, say for example, we could say survival needs, things of survival value. So when there is distress, okay, I'm feeling hunger, I need some food. I'm feeling cold, I need some heating arrangement. I need some warm clothes. So for facing suffering in life, we could say means are often physical. That we need physical means for facing suffering. And especially say if we see somebody who is starving, especially say if we see images of children starving with matchstick-like arms and bloated bodies, it's bloated bellies especially. It's just typical signs of malnutrition. It's very distressing. And our urge will be, if only I could help them in some way. It's a natural human urge. When means are missing, we naturally understand that this is a situation of distress. And let's try to help them the way we can. Say, if in a freezing cold, someone knocks at our door and we open it, it's a friend or even a remote acquaintance, and we see they're freezing. Oh, come in. And say, I'll come stand by the fire, or we put down his warm clothes. So it is natural to want to provide means when somebody is lacking means. However, the assumption in the material world, especially nowadays, is that the lack of means is the only cause of suffering. And when means are provided, the suffering will go away. So, providing means. This is what is associated with economic development. And that is the fixation of most people, individually and certainly of the governments. The governments are constantly seeking, how can we make more economic development? And the whole world is divided based on which countries are more economically developed, which are not developed. So in the past, there was an undeveloped countries it was used. Now, afterward, they started using the underdeveloped countries or developing countries. They try to use more politically correct language. Now they use HRRC. HRRC is the term which is used, human resource rich countries. Now, what that means is they are overpopulated and they're begging us for money. But the point is that whatever term they use, the primary thing they think is we have to do economic development. But if we look in the Western world, it's that people are economically developed reasonably. Yes, there are still people who are starving, but it's not that much. Yes, to not have food is a cause of pain. But does that mean all the people who have food are happy? No. They have their own set of problems in life. So actually, we don't just need means, we also need meaning. Meaning refers to things that bring value to survival. Not just things that have survival value, but things that bring value to survival. Why am I living? What is the meaning of my life? So, meaning is often metaphysical. It is not physical, it is metaphysical. So, now for some people, the meaning of their life might be that I have to take care of my family, I have to take care of my child. For some people, the meaning of their life might be that I want to serve my country. For my country, I may lay down my life. For some people, it may be, oh, our planet is in danger. We have to protect the ecology. People have to find some meaning in life. And generally, providing meaning is what is associated with spiritual development. So, spiritual development can mean many different things to different people. But our spirituality is generally our spirituality or our lack of spirituality is associated with what do we find meaning in. If somebody finds meaning in just drinking, well, you can't say they're really very spiritual people. They're just running away from life. They're not doing anything of value. Nonsense. If somebody has had a hard life and they just find some escape or relief in drinking, that's understandable to some extent, but still, it is not of much value. So, for facing distress in life, we need means and we need meaning. No problem? It's not coming clearly? Okay. So, the meaning of what I was speaking was not clear. Thank you. So, when we are providing, we need some meaning in our life. So, we need means and we need meaning. So, for example, now for in Arjuna's case, for Arjuna, the means was archery. The meaning was Krishna. That Krishna is the purpose of my life. It is loving and serving Krishna, being in the presence of Krishna that brings meaning to my life. So, for us, both of these are important in our lives. But relatively speaking, we can say meaning is much more important than means. Although both are required, we want to serve Krishna, service to Krishna, love for Krishna, absorption in Krishna, that is our meaning in life. But what am I going to do about it? Okay, I need some service. Maybe I'll distribute books, maybe I'll worship the deities, maybe I will speak about Krishna, maybe I'll do kirtans, maybe I'll raise funds for Krishna. So we need means and meaning. And even if one of these is taken away, it's difficult to deal with it. If somebody has been a book distributor throughout their life, and they've been fairly good at book distribution, and they suddenly develop some severe back pain, and they can't carry any weight. They find it difficult to carry the weight of their own body also, what to speak of carrying any books. Then the means is gone. It can be very disorienting at that time. So we could say when distress comes in our life, here we're trying to look at things in universal terms. We are trying to go to the top of the ladder of abstraction. And then we'll come down to the bottom. So loss of means, that can be distressing. If somebody suddenly loses all their money, they had invested in some stocks or in some trust, and that goes bankrupt, then loss of means is painful. But loss of meaning is much more painful. So, if say somebody loses their job, how will I take care of my family? But if that's it's very difficult to deal with. But somebody goes for the job and comes back home and find some crazy killer attack their family and kill their whole family. Now, that is much more painful. If the center of their life was their family, then loss of meaning would be far more painful. But the most is loss of both. That is the most painful. I was in Canada, I met one young man, and he was telling me how he came to Bhakti. He said, in around 2004 or something, there was a terrible tsunami in Sri Lanka. He was from Sri Lanka. So he said he was young, about 17, 18 at that time. His family had a shop. He was going toward the shop and suddenly he saw the tsunami coming. So he just ran and climbed on top of a tree and somehow survived. Then, when things abated, he went to the shop. It was completely swept away. And then he came back. He came back to his home. And his home had also been swept away. And all his family had been home. They had all been killed. So, in one moment, he lost both his means and his meaning. So, you can't imagine what he must have gone through. But that's when our devotees went there to do food for life. And now what happened over there was, from all over the world, relief poured out. And when our devotees went there, they told that, we have enough food now. We went with food, but people are traumatized over here. So we need some trauma therapy. Can you do something? So then our devotees started doing kirtan over there. And people initially were just sullen. What are these people? You are doing something, your own thing. But slowly one of them started singing, then another of them started singing. And then slowly they started feeling some relief, some sort of shelter, some kind of calmness, even amid that utter devastation. So many of them experienced that. Still some of them just went on with their lives. But he said, I want to find out more about this. And that's how he came to Bhakti. And he's a very dedicated devotee now. So the thing is that this is a very difficult situation to face, to lose both means and meaning. And at such times, what do we do in our lives? If we face a situation like this, sometimes we may lose means, sometimes we may lose meaning, sometimes we may lose both. So Arjuna, he will pour out his heart in the next few verses, almost 20 verses. He will remember his various pastimes with Krishna. And finally, he will remember the Bhagavad Gita. And then he will remember through the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is present even through his remembrance. And thus, in deep remembrance of Krishna, he will take shelter of Krishna. So for him, Krishna's manifest presence had disappeared. Manifest presence means Krishna in a form as he had come when he is the avatar. That was no longer there. But Krishna was still there in an unmanifest presence. And still there was the opportunity for him to connect with Krishna. So for us, even in bhakti, we may face loss of means. We may even face loss of meaning. It's one thing, say, if we are doing a particular service and we lose the ability to do that service. But it's another thing, we seem to come and chant and we seem to lose taste in chanting. We come and take shelter of coming from the deities. Our heart just feels empty and blank. Oh, we don't feel the presence of Krishna at all. So when this happens, at that time, we need to understand that Krishna is actually much, much bigger than Krishna's manifest presence. So we all have certain conception of Krishna consciousness, certain conception of connecting with Krishna. So this is a big subject, but I'll quickly make it. I'll try to make this point quickly, and then we will have question answers. That all of us may experience Krishna in different ways. So broadly speaking, if we consider, say, Krishna is at the center. Now, some people may experience Krishna through the cultural pathway. Cultural path to Krishna means that when they come to a temple and they see the deities being worshipped, they see the rituals being performed, they themselves perform the ceremonies. So for some people, when they do deity worship, when they do the arti, when do the dressing, make the garlands, the cultural pathway, oh, I have built this temple for Krishna, I have maintained this temple for Krishna. The cultural pathway may be their connection with Krishna. For some people, their path to be Krishna may be relational. Relational means that, oh, devotees are so nice. I want a sense of community. I want a sense of belonging. The world is so lonely. And these are such nice people. I like to be with them. And they are kind, they are caring, they are principled, they are devoted. Now, on the relational pathway, the primary thing is that it is people whom we are connecting with. So then there could also be the philosophical pathway. Philosophical pathway means some people have questions in life and they want answers to those questions. And to the extent they get those answers, they find satisfaction. And for such people, it is not that I got the answer and it's over. They have curiosity, they have a need to know. And for them, the primary nourishment is hearing good classes. It's reading Shastra and gaining deeper and better understanding of things. So such people, say for example, during the pandemic, they were not just nourished through online classes, they flourished. But for somebody whose primary nourishment was cultural or relational, okay, classes are fine, but I want to talk with people, I want to see people, I want to be with them. I want to take darshan of the deities, I want to see the deities being worshipped. I want to go to the temple atmosphere. They may feel that it just doesn't work. So many times devotees ask, is online association the same as physical association? Well, yes and no. Yes, if the intellectual is the primary way or philosophical is the primary way we get shelter of Krishna. But no, if it's cultural or relational. So it depends on persons to person. Now, some people may come from the psychological pathway. Psychological pathway means that their minds are disturbed and they just want some peace. They want some pacification of their emotions. They want to get some better handle on the storm that seems to be going inside them. And for them, coming to a peaceful place is very important. Now, if they come to a temple, this is what I've seen in the way contemporary Western people like kirtans. Now, many times, see, ISKCON was the first organization that actually introduced kirtan in the West. Prabhupada started going out and doing kirtans. But if we look at the way the kirtan scene has expanded on the Western cultural landscape, now ISKCON is only a very tiny part of it. We have been left far behind. Now we could say it's many reasons. There are many kirtaniyas who are entertainers. They do a mishmash of various kinds of kirtans, and we do only Hare Krishna. Those are all reasons which are valid. But a major reason is that our kirtans, with all due respects, are very noisy. And there are a lot of people who seek kirtan for peace. They want soft, gentle, soothing kirtans because their need is psychological. See, we seek kirtans for ecstasy. They seek kirtan for peace. And unless they are really connected with Krishna, what seems to be our ecstasy seems to be just noise for them. It is so loud, it's so disruptive. So many times, when I was in America, I went to some of these kirtan performances. Like people don't even participate in kirtan many times. Just sit and hear. It's like a musical concert. You watch. And I thought it's so passive. You're used to singing and participating. But I look at people were deeply moved, deeply immersed, deeply absorbed. So if they come for a psychological purpose, what they are looking is peace. And that's why sometimes if they come to our urban temples, well, it is just a part of the noisy neighborhood. If they come to something which is a little more secluded, away from the cities, then they feel very peaceful. So we all experience Krishna in different ways. So now what happens is, it is good that if we experience Krishna in any of these ways and we realize, okay, this is my connection with Krishna and I need to hold on to Krishna in this way. So if my primary connection is philosophical, then I need to study Shastra more, make time to study Shastra. I need to associate with devotees who love to study Shastra and discuss with them, and that will nourish me. So whichever way we find shelter of Krishna, that is auspicious. Yena kena prakarena mana Krishna niveshet. Somehow or the other, find shelter of Krishna. At the same time, Krishna will always remind us that he is bigger than our experience of him. Surrender means to recognize that, okay, I surrendered to Krishna, but this is my notion of Krishna, but Krishna is bigger than this. So basically, for all of us in our spiritual journey, there is Krishna and there is our conception of Krishna. And now, if we could say that these two are mostly not the same. So it's like, say, this is Krishna, and say, this is my conception of Krishna. Now, why am I putting these two as not identical? And why is it our conception of Krishna not within Krishna? Because, say, if somebody's highest value is peace, oh, I just want peace. Now, they might just go to some place where there is no devotion at all, and they may still feel peaceful. Oh, this is quite titillating. Somebody is very analytical, intellectual, philosophical. They might go to maybe a academic university where there might be a lot of intellectual people, but they might be atheistic. And they might still feel good over there. Yeah, because all these people are intellectual, these people are brilliant. I connect with them. But while they may connect with that place may not connect them with Krishna. Isn't it? Sometimes, say, if some devotees, their primary sense, the primary reason for connecting with Krishna is the relational connection. Oh, devotees are such nice people. And devotees are so warm and so pleasant. Now, they might go to maybe some official gathering, some other club, and there also my friend, people are so nice. And devotees who come primarily for the relational purpose, they have often asked me this question. It says that sometimes I feel non-devotees are nicer than devotees. They are more polite, they are more understanding, they are more kind. Devotees are so judgmental and demanding. This is right, this is wrong, you have not done this, when will you do this? As soon as I meet a devotee, their first question is, have you done this service? Have you not done this service? So sometimes if somebody is coming primarily for relational purposes, then what may happen is that they may feel that I'm getting that relational connection sometimes better outside Krishna than inside Krishna. So what happens is that for all of us, now this relational can apply to not just the devotee community around us, it can apply to the devotees who are guiding us, it can apply even to our spiritual master. And sometimes it may happen that there can be, in any of the paths by which we are connecting to Krishna, there can be a quake. There can be, now my drawing is something which will make you quake, but you just get, it's a quake. Now when it quakes over there, either we can run toward Krishna or we can run away from Krishna. See, when the ground under us starts shaking, we can't stay there. But where do we go at that time? So if somebody's sole connection with Krishna is through relationships, oh, devotees are such nice people. And if they find that devotees don't behave properly, or maybe one or two devotees don't behave properly, or they behave terribly, and nobody else stops them, then you start, what kind of people are these devotees? Why should I even be with them? So that is the time we need to choose Krishna above the path to Krishna. That okay, I would like to be with people who are nice and friendly and kind, but it is more important for me to be with Krishna. So Draupadi, when she was disrobed, she was not actually disrobed, she was attempted to be disrobed. So when that attempt was made, she was with her husbands, they were devotees, and they were meant to protect her. But none of them could protect her at that time. And she could have become bitter at that time. Oh, you call yourself devotees? How can you let this happen? And if devotees are like this, what is the use of being a devotee? But at that time, what she did was, she took shelter of Krishna. Normally, she would have served Krishna with her family. But at that particular time, in the emergency, when they were not able to help, and the quake occurred, she did not give up on Krishna itself. Although what was her normal connection with Krishna was no longer connecting her with, no longer sheltering her, she moved inward towards Krishna. So that means sometimes we need to realize that, okay, in the past, Krishna was manifesting to me through the kindness of devotees, through the sweetness and the politeness of devotees. But now, just because devotees are not being kind and sweet and polite to me, does not mean that Krishna is not available for me anymore. I have to see where I can find Krishna. Then maybe it is we chant the holy names intensely, and that is where we find Krishna. Maybe we go to a secluded place and we start studying scripture, hearing classes, and just there we find shelter of Krishna. Maybe we go to a holy dham and immerse ourselves over there in some place where it's peaceful, it's spiritual. So we may go from one path toward Krishna, but we need to know that that path is not the only path to Krishna. So if one path seems to be broken, then we need to find some other way to Krishna. So yena kena prakarena, that is somehow or the other. So I'll conclude with this point. Somehow or the other. What does this mean? Somehow or the other, remember Krishna. So it means at one level, whatever works. So if I find that I connect with Krishna through meeting with people who are nice and polite and devoted to Krishna, relational pathway, wonderful. So we could say normal times, we take shelter of whatever works. But in abnormal times, when things are difficult, we have to find what works. So, and we may have to go through a difficult journey till we can find out what works. And it's only when we find what works, that's when we'll be able to actually connect with Krishna, immerse ourselves in Krishna, and thus realize that Krishna is actually far bigger than my conception of Krishna. And that appreciation will actually enhance our Krishna consciousness. When Prabhupada came to America, he came in one sense looking for spiritually minded, intelligent. Prabhupada said, I am coming looking for Brahmanas, people who are intelligent and who will take up bhakti. So, in one sense, the people who actually took it up seriously were the opposite of what Prabhupada would have expected or conceived. The people, the hippies of the counterculture, they were unclean, they were having all kinds of terrible habits, they were into drugs. But Prabhupada got what he wanted, but in a form completely different from what he was looking for. And Prabhupada took that. And with that also, he did extraordinary things in Krishna's service. So that is Srila Prabhupada's glory. And Arjuna also, the same person who was so habituated to Krishna's personal presence, will now remember Krishna and take shelter of him in a way that he has not needed to do till now. That in Krishna's remembrance he will find shelter. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. We're talking about when everything seems lost. And discussing this in two parts. So the first part we discussed was Arjuna's plight. That he lost his material shelter, that is archery. He lost his spiritual shelter, that is Krishna. And that was extremely painful. Then we discussed about the perspective that we gain for our own lives by this. So in scripture, we move from the specific to the universal. So the universal principle here that we discussed is that to face life's distress, we need means which come from economic development, we need meaning which comes from spiritual development. And if both are lost, then it can be very, very difficult for us. And then for us to find our path, for us, we can say Krishna is our meaning. And then we may have different means to Krishna. Our means may be cultural, our means may be relational, like that, or they can be philosophical or psychological. So what we need to do is that if one means is lost, we have to find another. We need to make sure that our attachment to Krishna is more than our attachment to the path to Krishna. That we don't reduce Krishna, our attachment to Krishna needs to be more than our attachment to the path to Krishna, to the means by which we have experienced Krishna. So by our path to Krishna, we have some conception of Krishna. But actually Krishna is bigger than our conception. And when our devotion seems to be challenged by something inside the path of bhakti itself, that means Krishna is actually shaking us up so that we can expand our conception of him. So I'll conclude with a small poem that I had written about this particular plight of Arjuna. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I'll share that tomorrow. Any questions or comments? Yes, please. Hare Krishna.
I just wondered, is it part of the process that we have to go through those quakes? Like it would seem that maybe it's just incidental. We had that guy had bad karma, and then probably lost all his family, and he would have become a devotee anyway if he was in contact. Or was that necessary? are the difficulties necessary for us to go forward, and that's Krishna's way of doing it. By coming avoid becoming so philosophical and so pure in our chanting that we can avoid having to go through this.
It's difficult to say because at one level, the world's nature is what it is. As devotees, also we're going to go old, get deceased. We're also going to die. So adhyatmic, adhibhautik, adidaivik kleshas, they are going to be there for devotees also. So in one sense, we can say everyone will need to go through this. So it's that certainly the quantity of the severity of the distress can either be increased or decreased. So if a devotee while practicing bhakti becomes very attached to the position and prestige that they get from their bhakti, now that may also make them do their bhakti very diligently. Like somebody is very strict about coming for the morning program. But why? So that they can show everyone how strict I am. So now they are attached more to the prestige in the community than they are to Krishna. Then, if something happens and they lose that prestige, the pain will be much, much more. But on the other hand, somebody, okay, accepts that position in a mood of service, doesn't let it get to their head. Then, even if they lose that position, it will still be painful because they were serving Krishna through that particular situation, but it won't be that painful. So, definitely, if our attachment to Krishna is more, then we could say the distress we face will be less. But still, there will be some distress in one sense that there's one letter that Prabhupada wrote to one of his disciples who left Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said, I have heard this distressing news about you, and I'm feeling so forlorn. Forlorn is a very poetic word almost. It's like abandoned, rejected, lonely. I'm feeling so forlorn. But then Prabhupada moves on, the letter says, nonetheless, I am dedicated to the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I am confident that Lord Chaitanya will send me the people to assist to fulfill his mission. If not you, then someone else. So at one level, Prabhupada was as a person, as a guru, he was a caring person. And he cared for his disciples. He cared for every person. But at the same time, Prabhupada's, uh, Prabhupada cared for Krishna more than the people with whom he was serving Krishna. So that's why the attachment to Krishna has to be more than our attachment to the means for serving Krishna. Okay. Thank you. Yes, yeah, there may.
Hare Krishna Guru. Thank you very nice class. Just one question. You were mentioning some people get attracted to this movement of Krishna consciousness through philosophy, some through culture and relationships, and someone is interested in philosophy. Physical association is very important. They can also associate online and become Krishna conscious. But at some point of time, isn't like culture and relationship are absolutely necessary to advance further
Yeah.
in Krishna
So
consciousness?
Krishna consciousness is a relationship with Krishna. So and it has that has to be multidimensional. It cannot be a relationship based on the head only. But what I was talking about is they experience Krishna primarily through the head. For them, the path through the heart is through the head. So when they feel agitated, they don't want to go and talk with devotees. When they feel agitated, they want to open Shastra and find out, oh, this section of Shastra, this is what speaks to me. So we need connection through all the ways. And Prabhupada has given us Krishna consciousness in a very rich and integrated way, where all these will be a part of our Krishna consciousness. But what I was talking about is where we experience the most connection and where we will go by default to take shelter when we are in trouble. Thank you.
Yes, many of us come to Krishna consciousness through different ways, and previous lives we have many attachments, many parents, family, things like this. Um, can And is attachment to be a hindrance to progress if we attach to trying to serve Krishna by bringing Krishna consciousness to these people? And if these people are not willing or indifferent, should we just abandon them and hope that Krishna will take care of it, or should we persevere? Or is that perseverance a sign of attachment that we need to let go of?
Okay, very thoughtful question. It's not one or zero, I would say. It's both. See, if you consider we exist, you could say at the intersection of our past and future. That's where the present is at each moment. Now, say if your past is non-Krishna conscious, and our future we want it to be Krishna conscious. So now there are broadly two ways of looking at it. That my past was just Maya, and I give up my past, and I'm going to take to Krishna consciousness. The other is actually my past prepared me for my Krishna consciousness. It is that, okay, whatever experiences I went through, whatever kind of upbringing I had, whatever kind of education I got, all that was preparing for me. So we can see the past as a waste. Oh, I was in Maya in my past. And if only I'd come to Krishna consciousness, my life would have been so much better. Or I can look at my past as a preparation. Now, these are two almost opposite visions. And what is the reality? It's both. It's not that every single thing that we went through our past was what we had to necessarily go through to prepare for coming to Krishna. But to say that all of it was a waste, that's also not true. We have learned some basic things which are helping us in our Krishna consciousness. So I learned the English language. I developed a love for the English language, and that's what I'm using in my writing and speaking. I learned some analytical ability through my study of my engineering, and that's helping me to analyze. My parents taught me some values, and that's what those values are also helping me in my service to Krishna. I learned many more values after coming to bhakti, but I learned some things. So if we our view of the past, we can go to either extremes. That it is just a waste means everything is bad. It's a completely negative view. And you can say it's a preparation. That's everything that happened in my past was good and valuable because it brought me to Krishna. No, in between, it is rather we evaluate on merit. So evaluate on merit means, okay, which part of my past has given me certain values, certain habits, certain skills that is helping me in my taking shelter of Krishna. Which part of my past has given me some conditioning, some unhealthy habits, some addictions, which I need to overcome. That is a waste, that is a burden which I need to shed. So now, when it comes specifically to our relationships, it is naturally our heart's desire that if I have got something of value, I would like those who love me also to get that thing of value. But as you rightly pointed out, while trying to share Krishna Bhakti with others, we need to be careful about what is the net effect. Is it that, say, if this is Krishna, and say, I am here in my journey towards Krishna, say, I have a link with Krishna. And now, say, my family is here. Now, I try to link with them. When I link with them, is it that I am lifting them up? Then it is good. But if they are dragging me down, then that is bad. So we'll have to see Falena Parichayati. While holding up my link with Krishna, if I can lift them up, and if they are ready to be lifted up, then that is good. But if that is not happening, if in trying to maintain that connection with them, we are going away from Krishna, then that doesn't mean we have to necessarily break the connection, but we may have to reframe the connection on terms that is not at least damaging to our Krishna consciousness. Okay, I can come and maybe meet you at this frequency. But when I come there, I'm not going to eat meat. I'm not going to go to parties which are going to drink or these things. So we might have done that in the past, and they may say that if you love me, we should do all the things that we did together in the past. Well, yeah, I do love you, I do care for you, but I also care for other things in my life now, and that's just a normal growth in life, isn't it? That when a man gets married, say, the man will not do all the things with the parents that they used to do before they got married. Now they got another relationship in their life, and they do other things. So relationships, the way the relationships function, change with time. So we don't have to feel guilty if we need to reframe the relationship, redefine the parameters of the relationship. Okay, thank you. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you for such a wonderful plan. I have two questions. One is when somebody who's ready to start their journey in Krishna consciousness, so they use both meaning and both. So there is a mix of things. So how would they're still not so attached to Krishna? How would what could they do to see that connection?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. It's I think that if we are connected with those devotees, then we have to pray to Krishna. Krishna, please give me some intelligence. What can I do for such a person? So ultimately, faith, there are two broad conceptions of faith. Faith is like a gift that we get by mercy. That, oh, I have so much faith. It's more like an asset that you have. I have faith. When we say it's like I have wealth, I have faith. So we can use faith as the idea of the asset. But faith is also a matter of choice. Because in everyone's life, there are things which have gone right and there are things which have gone wrong. So it is for us to decide, what are we going to look at? Am I going to look at the things that have gone wrong and say, oh, life is terrible, the world is terrible, God is terrible, or God doesn't exist? Or am I going to look at the things that have gone right in my life and hold on to maybe there is some plan over here. I can't make sense of anything that is happening in my life right now, but there is some plan. So now we can try to help them make that choice, but ultimately that choice is what every individual has to make. So when I grew up, when I was one, I got polio. So basically, my mother took me to a clinic to give the polio vaccine, and she was very diligent in taking care of. I was her first child, so she was very diligent. But unfortunately, we used to live in a small town, and the power supply had gone off over there. So the fridge in which the vaccine had been kept didn't have power, and because of which the germs in the vaccine increased. And when the doctor didn't realize that and gave me the injection, the vaccine, instead of preventing polio, gave me polio. And my mother was completely shattered by it. No, it's like you do something for the good of someone else. It's like you're being responsible, and then that backfires. So later on, I remember my mother was she was not devoted in the sadhana kind of sense, but she was quite religious. She had faith in God. So one of the things she told one of my relatives, when this is what I remember, they'd come to meet us, and I was probably 2 or 2.5 or something like that. And they were consoling my mother, oh, it's so sad that your son got polio. So I remember my mother's voice, very clear, confident. She said that whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. Now, I don't know what sign of intellectual ability my mother had seen in me at that age to make that statement. But somehow She made that, and that actually defined my life. Although I couldn't play like other kids, I didn't really focus on the fact that I had physical inability. I focused on the fact that I did have intellectual abilities. And I could find that I could read faster and grasp faster, express better, remember better. So I had those intellectual abilities. So I felt that was my mother's choice, that rather than seeing what had gone wrong in her life, she focused on what was right. Mhm. So ultimately, every one of us has to make a choice. Okay, this terrible thing has happened. Either there is no God and no plan for my life, and life is like a lottery, and I got a bad ticket, and that's all there is to it. Or there is some plan, even though it makes no sense to me right now. And we look back at our life and see times when things have turned out to be better than what we deserved. And we all can look at times when so many dangers could have befallen us in our lives, and they didn't, or at least the dangers came, but we found a way out. So faith is a matter of choice. So when everything seems to be lost, when means and meaning seem to be lost, it's like I'm here. It is God has not brought me this far to abandon me now. The God who protected me or provided for me during my past. So God was there in the past and He protected me, He provided me. So even if I don't see God in my life right now, I see everything going wrong. The God who has brought me this far has not brought me this far to leave me now. So even if it seems He has left me, He's there somewhere. Let me just hold on and push on, and I'll find it. Okay. Yes. So in bhakti, there is both, that bhakti has a side of the individual responsibility, and there is social responsibility. So in fact, when Krishna uses the word dharma, he uses it in both sense. So dharma, so 2.7, when Krishna says, Arjuna says, I want to know what is my dharma. He's talking about individual responsibility. But in 4.8, when he uses the word dharma, I have come to establish dharma. He's talking about social order that will take care of people. So there are both aspects to it. So, like say, for example, in our tradition, it is said Varanashram means that old people should be taken care of. The elderly should be cared for. That's a characteristic of Varanashram. So, society is trained, or society is should be arranged in such a way that the elderly are taken care of. But what are the elderly told? They are told you should not just stay in your home and be comfortable. You should take vanaprastha, you should take sannyas. And Prabhupada says, when Dhritarashtra passes away in the forest, he says, it is recommended that a person leave their body all alone in the forest when nobody even comes to know. But that's not necessarily the best way. But Dhritarashtra is not a devotee, that was a good way. But the point is, Prabhupada says the individual should be trained in such a way that they don't expect and demand from the society. The society should be trained to give, and the individual should be trained to not expect. So somebody who's truly detached and renounced, sannyasis, they should be ready to travel all alone, and they should have faith that Krishna is with me. So both those dynamics are there. Now the unhealthiest dynamic is where the individual expects and the society does not provide. The society is complaining that this individual is so needy and demanding, and the individual is complaining the society is uncaring. So ideal should be that the society provides, but the individual doesn't expect. So that way, it's the best way to move forward. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagvatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Jai.